Coffee, please, man.
Okay, good evening. On a Sunday evening before we head to bed for the long night. For many of us, there are many people working. I get a lot of people asking me, what is addiction recovery all about? What is the literature all about? And it's not. Alcoholics Anonymous used to be very, to put it right differently, but it used to be very anonymous. And it was, you either knew about Alcoholics Anonymous long before the internet came into play. You'd have to go to a meeting to know what it is. So I thought I would, our program, we do the steps, we do pastoral work, that we've got our pastors here, you've got our doctor. If a person needs to go to a psychiatrist, you'll be seen outpatient psychiatry and psychology as well. But it's mainly an holistic way of, we do things here that we actually teach people a way of life, a new way of life. A lot of people come into addiction recovery, they're broken. The family relationships are completely broken. The self-esteem of the person is at the lowest level that you can be in, because excuse me, when we did drinking and drugging, it caused us to do things that were sober. And my drinking took me to the streets, and I lived on the streets for 2 years, almost 2 years, and it wasn't a pleasant time for me or my family. What we find in the country today is that our children are getting so addicted so early, and it's like the new norm, and that's what's very frightening. It's like it's acceptable today. My belief that the legalization or the decriminalization of cannabis was wrong. I think that cannabis for cannabis oil and the use of cannabis for sickness is, I fully support it, I endorse it. But, I think when our kids of 7, 8, 9 don't have an idea what they're dealing with, and they start using the stuff, their brains get deferred, if I may use that word, very early on. So I'm just going to read you a passage. It's actually, when Carl puts this power bank in, I'm just going to read you this passage of basically what Alcoholics Anonymous says about it. It's very interesting because the 12 steps are used for people that are not only in addiction recovery. So it's quite an eye opener. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous 31 years ago. And then I stayed around for a couple of years, relapsed, and now I'm 15 years sober by the grace of God. So it says how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not are people who cannot or will not complete a simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates, they're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. And that's basically life. Their chances are less than average of finding recovery. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders. But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories, that's our stories, disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. This book, by the way, was written in 1939. AA was started in 1935, and this book was written and published in 1939. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Now, for instance, if you want to lose weight, or you want to just clear your mind and make peace with the past. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, and that's the biggest addict problem, is they think, 3 weeks in a recovery center is going to give you lasting recovery. Well, it's not going to, because it can dry you out, but it's not going to fill what we call the missing hole in the soul. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was null until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, with drugs, Overeaters Anonymous, you name it, there's an anonymous for everything these days. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We can't be half pregnant in addiction recovery. Not at all. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the 12 steps, ladies and gentlemen, that some of you may have heard, some of you may have practiced, and some of you may have practiced it in your life where you are not an addict. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over our alcohol, drugs, etc., that our lives had become unmanageable. None of us would be sitting tonight in this rehabilitation center of mine here in Worcester if our lives weren't unmanageable. That's why we came in here. We didn't come here because of any other reason. We drank too much, we drank too much, and our lives become unmanageable. So some of us had to go to prison. Some of us had to go to the streets. Some of us had to go so far down. They talk about hitting rock bottom. But everyone has got a rock bottom. You don't have to end up on the streets to be on rock bottom. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So this program opens it up for Christians, Muslims, Buddha, atheists, you name it. It's a spiritual program. It's not a religious program. So the God we talk about is the God of your understanding, what you believe your higher power to be, which some people think whatever their higher power is, it's their prerogative. Number 4, excuse me, thanks, Tank. We made a searching and fearless ourselves. So we took stock of our lives, and that's probably one of the hardest steps. This is the cleaning out steps that 4, 5, and 6 happen. Number 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrong. We've all got wrongs, whether we're addicts or people that have never touched a drug or a drink before. We've all got our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And, we've all got defects of character, whether you're an addict or whether you're not an addict, whether you're a young man or a young woman or an old man. We've all got defects of character. And strange enough, this step, I was invited to America to talk on this step, on step 6, on the defects of character in Ohio. And then I went to New York and I spoke on all the 12 steps, which was much easier than just sticking on one step of defects of character, because we could have gone on like for years on that. Step 7 of the 12, it says, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. We've all got shortcomings, because none of us is perfect. So whether we are addicts or whether we are just the normal run-of-the-mill people, we've got shortcomings. Step number 8, which is very important for everyone. We made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Again, this is a lifestyle. You don't have to be an addict to go and make amends to people, to go say sorry and really mean it. Number 9, we made direct amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. You don't want to go add fuel to a fire and go do things that's going to cause more harm once you're going to make the amend. Step number 10 is that we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. And that's what we do every night on the farm here. We've got a diary. Everyone's got their own diary. And then they write down their day. And if they've said something bad to someone, or they didn't do something what they should do, or they would just say rude to someone, they'd make amends. So you don't wake up in the morning and you still got that resentment, because resentment is the number 1 killer of any alcohol and addict. Number 11 is we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. God's will, not ours. We used to be in the pilot seat and the plane crashed. Then we gave over and let the God of our understanding be in that seat. Step number 12 was, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to the still suffering and to practice these principles in all our affairs. What keeps us sober is service, is carrying the message of hope to the still suffering addict and alcoholic in this world, and carrying a message of hope to the still suffering mother and father in this world, and brothers and sisters. And we have to be the hope. And we have to show at all times that recovery is possible. And it's fun to be sober. And you can have a lot of fun to be sober. A lot of people think, I can't drug, I can't have fun. That is the most insane thing I can say now, but that's the way I thought 16 years ago. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. Spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and addicts and we could not manage our own lives. B, that no human power could have relieved our alcoholism or addiction. And C, that God could and would if He were sought. Now that is just basically the 12 steps of any fellowship, and the 12 steps of fellowship, of any fellowship, comes directly from the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I just want to look for something here to read it to you, and it's a lovely journey, and I've never met someone. I had to go and sleep on a park bench for it was about 19 months. I'd been a detective in the Narcotic Bureau. I'd been a detective in the Murder and Robbery Unit. I had worked at Parliament. I was the security director for a very well-known retail store, a countrywide retail store. And then alcohol and drugs just got too much for me. Alcohol became my master. That was my main drug. And it took me to the streets of this country. And I slept in doorways, and I slept in highways and byways. And I used to scratch through bins for food in the daytime, and the night I used to pick up cigarette stompies so that I could smoke, and I had no money. I was faithless, I was toothless, I was hopeless, I was jobless, and I had top jobs. I had all the trappings of success earlier on, but the alcohol kind of was fun in the beginning. And I played a lot of sport. I played top level sport, and alcohol was always part of the scene. And when I was in the drug squad, alcohol became more part of the scene. And when I was in the murder and robbery unit, it just increased. So alcohol then became the destroyer, and it destroyed me like lightning. Alcohol, recovery promised me everything that alcohol could not deliver. And we're sitting with a pandemic of alcoholism and drug addiction in our country today. We are sitting where wives are very scared of their husbands because of alcohol. When the husband gets drunk, they start beating their wives up, and that happens in all communities, white, black, colored, Indian, and colored. It happens all over. And a lot of people live in fear and I can tell you this quite categorically. I was against the alcohol ban completely, because we are a democracy. But I know that there was a lot of women and men who were actually quite glad that the alcohol ban was there. So they didn't have to put up with the alcoholism and with the abuse, etc., that came with the alcohol. So it's a double-edged sword. Carl, I still smoke, and just because I'm live on you, doesn't mean I'm not going to smoke, you know what I mean? Because I'm not skyn heilig en twee gevriet. Thanks, I knew I could always rely on you.
Oh, look.
Okay, they haven't opened up the cigarette market yet, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm sure we've all been smoking and paying these exorbitant prices to our Pakistani and good night, our Pakistani and our Bangladeshi friends. So alcohol is obviously the double-edged sword, but a lot of people don't want to ask for help. A, because of the stigma, and B, because they will seem, okay, I'm weak if I go and ask for help for my alcoholism or for my drug addiction. And alcoholism I've seen it destroy many families. In the 3.5 decades I've been in this, I've seen it destroy hundreds of families where women are petrified. And also there is a thing in addictive and alcoholism where when people have been married for a long time, one will become, afterwards, once they die, they will seek solace in the bottle. And that is just to take the pain away, because they've never been big drinkers ever. And that is quite prevalent in today's society, that a partner that has been with a partner for a long time loses the partner and seeks solace. And being an alcoholic means that our lives are unmanageable. We can't pick up anything that is intoxicating, and we can't pick up anything that is mind-altering. This is the couple of the promises that was written in 1939, and then I'm going to close. In 1939, by Dr. Bob and Bill W., who started Alcoholics Anonymous. They were both chronic drunks. One was a doctor, and the other one was a stockbroker. And they were chronic drunks. And they were given no hope. Like a lot of people who come into our center are given no hope. But today they are married, got children, and flourishing in society. We use the dog therapy at RAEL, where the guys who come in, when there's a dog available from Sandy's Eden Animal Welfare, then they care for that dog. They foster that dog until it's time for the dog to go back to its owners, or the time that the dog gets adopted. We've got 11 dogs, so we have kept quite a couple of them, but they're beautiful, being on a little small holding. have around, everyone with their own character, and I absolutely adore dogs. The promises of recovery, my friends. And maybe even if you online tonight don't know it in your private family or in your personal family, that you know someone at work or you know someone wherever in your social circle who is struggling with drugs and alcohol. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, this phase to get ready, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. I'm free today. I'm happy today, but I'm free from the demon of alcohol and drugs. I just used to drug and drink myself, and whatever happened, where I passed out, I passed out. After I had my first drink, I could give you no guarantee where I would be that evening, what would happen, what I would do. And many nights have blackouts, and not knowing what I did that night. Alcohol totally consumed me. And I come from a very good family. And alcohol and drug addiction doesn't discriminate. Because there's been high-level politicians' children who've been in my center, CEOs of company, and the poorest of the poor that we sponsor. So it doesn't matter where you come from or what your color is. If it's going to nail you, it's going to nail you. And we have to remove the stigma, and the only way we can remove the stigma is with the help of the public. I started World Addiction Day on the 21st of September 2009. We celebrate that on the 21st of September every year. And then every Friday we've got, for the last 5 years, every Friday, media manager Lee Hannett in England is RAEL Orange Friday, where we ask people to wear orange or something orange, like lipstick or clothes, or paint your nails orange, just for the stigma. Just so people can ask you, why are you wearing that? Why is it that painted that? And you tell them because of the stigma. So please, if you'd like to join our pages, RAEL Orange Friday and this RAEL organization, and there's our new page that is called All South African Lives Matter. And that's not only politics, that's about the social ills that is killing our country, like our elderly, like our animal welfare, drug addiction, farm murders. So it's just not about the corrupt ANC. We're going to know a new freedom. It's a beautiful freedom to wake up in the morning and you're sober, and not the first thing that you have to grab is a bottle. I remember that I used to go search for a bottle and drive around when I still had a car looking for a bottle that was open so I could get at least 2 beers down my stomach and get sick from the first one, that I can carry on with a bit of the day. I don't want to be in mental institutions anymore where they used to just pump injections into my body to just let me sleep in padded cells from the deliriums and the withdrawals from alcohol. It's frightening. If you ever come to my home, to our small holding, you'll see a lot of elephants around. Not the real elephants, I'd love one of those. But I used to see pink elephants coming out the walls. And I've got a collection of elephants. I've got hundreds of elephants. And it reminds me daily of where I come from. I cannot forget where I come from, ever. Nor wish to shut the door on it. A lot of us have had relationships, or we've done things in the past and we want to get rid of it. We don't have to go to a psychologist. Don't have to go to a psychiatrist and get pumped full of tablets. You just have to work through a program. That's why I said the program of the 12 steps is not only for addicts. We will come to the word serenity, and we will know peace. What a peace it is now. You know, you go out on a drunken spree the night before. You get home 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. You get into bed. There's already tension in the house. I was staying with my mom and dad most of the time. And you got the duvet over your head. And the most things you're worried about are the police coming. What have you done? No, you don't want noises. And then you're sick and you're ill for 3 or 4, 5 days. getting through this hangover, and then we forget where we come from and you go start again the next Thursday. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. And that's why out of the 10, 15 people that I sponsor or co-sponsor on the farm, cannot afford to pay our fees, which are very reasonable fees. The rest pay, and that's how this place makes. I do not take a salary from what I do. Obviously, my expenses are paid. But we need to save people's lives. Huh? After you've been down where some of the roads, where some of us have been down, like my CEO, Kurt, he's been down a long road. Graham has been here 5 years. He's a panel beater now. He came in here with a toothbrush. And 5 years later, he's still here. But he's a productive member of society today. His girlfriend, who he visits every 2 weeks, has just given birth to a beautiful child. So there's Garth, Big J, I can name you off a whole list of people, Grant, Carl, Tank, who are doing well, Garth, that people had written off. Andrew, that people had written off. Michael. Don't write a person off if you write it off at your own peril, because God maybe and has got another plan. I've seen the most miraculous comebacks of people here. What does worry me a bit is that some high-profile people, which I mean premiers and mayors, whose children are drug addicts, don't come into the public forum where they have the public attention and speak about the stigma of drug addiction. One person has, and that is the Minister of Social Development, Shana Fernandez in Cape Town, whose son came to our rehab and today is 4 years sober. She was very brave that she goes out and she talks about drug addiction, and I admire her for that. But I know many other top politicians, premiers, etc., whose children are drug addicts. In fact, one is still on the streets. The feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellow human beings. That's the main thing. When you've been at the bottom, there's only two places to go to. 6 feet under, or you rise again. Self-seeking will slip away. Material things are no longer important. They don't become important anymore. It's about our lives. Our lives are important, and how we can sow love and sow care and help into other people's lives. Our whole outlook upon life will change. I don't have to look through a Castle Lager bottle anymore. I still go to parties. I still go to functions. I go give talks at places where the booze is flowing, but I've lost the desire to drink. But I don't hate alcohol. Alcohol hated me. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. A lot of people come into centers, I'm sure other centers as well, where their self-esteem is so bad and they fear being with people. And the economic situation of those people are doomed. Because we'll do anything for our bottle and our drugs. A lot of people do the stealing route. A lot of people do various other routes to get their alcohol and their drugs. We will know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. You know, when my mother became ill and had the heart operation and then the stroke, etc., I knew how to handle that situation. If I was drunk or drugged, there was no ways I could have helped my mom. If I was still drinking and drugging today, I'd be dead. But if I was spared and I wasn't dead, I wouldn't be able to have my mom in my home with 2 nurses, and I can look after her and make sure that my mother lives her days safe, cared for, and loved. And that's why I'm so glad that I took her out of the old age home, because I could make the decision because I was sober. And it's beautiful to have Mom here. I love her with all my heart. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly. But they will always materialize if we work for them. If you have someone that, and I'm not looking for customers because we're always virtually full, is they're quite welcome to phone. They're quite welcome to come and see me for free. It's all confidential. It will never be publicized, etc. And I will talk to them and try and help them. We do home interventions as well. We do them all around the country. Our last one was in Johannesburg. We've done a couple in Durban, PE, whatever. And we go out and we go and speak to the family. We don't go and speak to the family as like, here comes Mr. Euro. No, here comes an alcoholic addict who went to the park bench and today, by the grace of God, is sober. How can I help you? Yeah, so that's just a short introduction into Alcoholics Anonymous. I may do this once or twice a week. And it's actually an introduction into recovery. Into recovery. The greatest fear of many an addict and alcoholic, mine as well, was recovery. How will I be when I get sober? Will I be able to handle life sober? Will I be able to do things that I could only do, that I thought that I could only do drunk? Before the Black Pina and AB de Villiers, I went to a lot, to Newlands, to rugby, to Newlands, to cricket, which I won't go anymore until they change. And I used to sit at Castle Corner where I used to sit and drink, but now I can still sit there, or in the seats that Liz Williamson gives me, but I don't have to drink. Alcohol to me is poison, but it's not poison there's nothing wrong with anyone else drinking as long as their lives don't become unmanageable. And I think that's where we have to get the picture right and say, hey, suddenly you stop drinking or smoking, and smoking and drinking becomes evil. No, not at all. Drugs, on the other hand, be very careful, ladies and gentlemen who are on and listening here, is that when your children say they want to go to a trance party, I can guarantee you they're not going there for hot dogs and Coca-Cola. They're going there to use drugs. And that's how you stay awake for the 3 days. And that's how you party for the 3 days. And that's how you just get stoned for 3 days. There's the obvious exception of 1 or 2 people who may go there just because they want to go there, but then you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. We need to protect our children from the evils of drugs, and we need to protect our children from the evils of taking whatever comes from another person. My advice is always drug test your children. Spare my feelings, save my life. Spare my feelings, save my life. My road was a horrible one. Up until the age of 25, my life was beautiful. Then I went to prison. Then I went to the streets. Then I tried to kill myself. And by the grace of God, on the 28th of June 2005, I put down my last drink and my last drug. If this man can get sober, any man and woman in this world can get sober. May you have a lovely evening that's left. God bless you. And sleep well. And may God give us the strength and the courage to fight another day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thanks all.